Hi, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm very concerned this year about fuel. How so? We've traditionally always used 91 car gasoline in our ultralights, advanced ultralights, etc. here in Canada with no problems because it's been neat fuel. That means it's just pure gasoline, no ethanol. 87 and 89, which is the low regular and the mid-grade, have always had ethanol in it, and that's why we've been using 91. That's no longer an option, and we have to assume that all the fuel that we buy, whether it's marked on the pump or not, has 10% ethanol in the 91. Now, what my big concern is if you have a fiberglass fuel tank, ethanol fuel and fiberglass fuel tanks don't play well together. Now, I have a couple of fuel tanks here that I want to show you, and you can see it's the degradation to the tank is incredible. I want to get the word out on this and try and get the knowledge out there that I have with my experience with ethanol so far, and to help somebody out before you have a problem. And hopefully you'll learn from this, you'll understand what the problem actually is. So I've got two fuel tanks here. They're both identical. I believe they were probably made at the same time from the same mold because they're both painted gray on the bottom. Now, before I spoke at a seminar that I did, presented, and I was talking about, well, what do we do with our fiberglass tank if we have one? Well, let's contact the manufacturer and say, is the fuel tank in my aircraft compatible with ethanol fuels? Okay, well, these are in Canada, a long-range tank for a Challenger, Quad City Challenger, and they're manufactured aftermarket because the Challenger, original Challenger tanks, the 5 and the 10 gallon one are, I just call it gas can plastic, they're plastic, and the wing tanks are also plastic. So primarily, I believe, all the planes in Canada, pretty much, if it's on floats or it's long range, and a Challenger has got this style fuel tank. Now, this tank here has never had E10 in it. This gas tank has only ever had, because it's been sitting around for a few years now, as surplus part, and so no ethanol has ever been in this tank. This one is actually out of my personal aircraft, and I'm not sure if you can see the difference in the color. This one's a little dirty. Look at this. Look at the difference in the color here, and I can actually see the weave of the fiberglass that's in the top of this tank. That's just the top. Now, I'm not sure if it shows either, but it shows very well, but the color, I noticed this was changing, and I thought that my tank was one of the ones that was made with a better quality resin that was compatible with E10. Then I got thinking about it, and I thought, well, I'm gonna watch it just monitor this, because I can see the tank, and then I went, you know what, it's all a lighter color now than this. It originally was a darker color, more of a brown color, and I went, okay, there's something going on with this thing. This is coming out of the airplane, and I'm going to get a solution for this. But anyway, let's stay on track here, and I want to show you what the difference is visually in these two tanks and how the ethanol has so badly degraded this tank compared to this tank here that's never had ethanol in it. So I've just wiped off the top here with a little bit of cleaner. So let's get another look at the top. This is the one that's only ever had neat fuel in it. It's got some little stains on it. But primarily looking at the color in here, and For somebody that looks at fiberglass, I would just say, yep, that looks like fiberglass, normal. All right, so let's move over and let's look at the E10 fuel tank. And see the difference in it. So we're all really light around here, and I can actually see the grid in there that's in the fiberglass. So let me zoom in on that. So I don't know if that shows or not, but maybe with a different light on it you can see it. But I mean, just look at the color here and here. It's amazing the difference in it. So very, very degraded. So there's a difference in the appearance of the front panel on both of these. Now, if we just look at, okay, what's the strength of it? Well, there's a little bit of a bend in it here, so it should be quite strong there. So I can push on this, and I pushing as hard as I can push right there, and it flexes a little teeny bit. Okay, so now let's move over and let's do the same thing with this tank. Okay, so this is the ethanol tank, and we have the same line across here, and it is a different color and it has that lightness to it. And like I say, I don't know if it shows up very well or not, but when I go down in here and I push on here, it feels more flexible in the middle. But then when I go on here, look, and I was pushing the other one way harder. So see how much is degraded? The fiberglass, like, that's amazing. So one of the Challenger owners that I know had all of a sudden a leak in his tank, and he took the tank out and had it repaired, and then it leaked again. I think that's becoming, we're really starting to see the reason why that is. So now let's look at the bottom. This is the neat fuel one. So let's do this again. There's a little rib across here, so let me push on here. Yeah, that's went as hard as I could push. Well, I finally did bow it. Now let's move over and see what kind of result we get from the E10 one. I'm not hardly pushing at all. Okay, look at, no effort required. So again, it's flexible. And when I say, I'm wrong when I say the fiberglass degradation. The fiberglass is still there. It's the resin that holds it together. Okay, so now I don't know where the leak was in that other tank, but I noticed when I was looking at this one, and let me see if I can, okay, let me zoom in on this one here, move over a bit. Okay, now right in here, there's a little bubble, and when I push on here, look, it just opens up. So I would imagine that's probably where the other one leaked. So there we go. They can open this right up. Just push it, and the more I pushed it, I'm sure I can make it split open more. Yeah, did you hear it just crack? So right now, in the light that I can see, there's a line of separation. I would say it was going to go all around the corner here. So I have not been flying the airplane with this tank in it. I actually specifically just left some fuel in it because I'd already decided it was coming out. So here we are on this would be the left side of the tank. This is where the filler neck is. And we have this angle across here. So this is yeah, I can flex it a bit, but I'm pushing pretty hard. And I would think that would be absolutely normal. Now when I move to the ethanol tank, so we have the same contour. Oh, you can see the light on it anyway right there. Okay, so now, I mean, I'm not straining myself at all to, this is just like just no integrity to this thing whatsoever. So I'm sure that the opposite side is, yeah, it's exactly the same. And oh, it's wet right along there. I just noticed that. Okay, so here, let's go right. Now this would be the seam where the top half of the tank and then they have the bottom half of the tank they mold and they put it together here. And this is wet. That is wet there and all along there. So this whole seam here where this was joined together, it's just starting to delaminate and fall apart as well. Isn't that interesting? Okay, and what else can we look at on this thing as far as that goes? Yeah, the worst part is right here at the front where it had that bubble in it. And again, I'll just switch over here, and so this is the neat fuel tank, the old one, and this is nice gel coat. This looks like as smooth and shiny, you know, like a side of a boat does. So this is no signs of any bumps or anything in here, and these are, like I say, the same series of tanks. So the evidence is fairly graphic, isn't it? And as I said, it's the resin. There's different kinds of resin that these tanks were made from. From the way I understand it, somebody originally had a mold made and produced these tanks. Then they sold it to somebody else, and somebody else produced another run of these tanks. I think there's probably 3 runs of these altogether. Nobody really knows. I think that the 2 fellas are gone now. So there's no way to track down what kind of resin was in this. I think that this was the better resin. I think it's vinyl ester resin that's supposed to be ethanol resistant, which is what I believe this was. So I went, you know what, I'm just gonna monitor it. And then I'm thinking, oh man, you know, I don't wanna be able to fly my plane around and having this gas tank thing in the back of my mind. Is the gas tank, literally the resin in the gas tank, is it melting into the fuel and burning in the engine? Yeah, I don't want to deal with that. So that's why I decided to come up with a remedy for this. And I'll show you that in a minute. Now, one of the ones that was a different series than this in another province, the engine failed. It was a 503 2-stroke. Same goes for the 4-strokes. The same kind of thing happens. So, you know, if this isn't just a 2-stroke thing, you got a 912, we can end up with the same problem. So if you got a fiberglass tank in your 912, this is all relevant. Anything that has a fiberglass tank in it, I really want to get the word out and try and get this experience with this right here, get the word out and try and save some problems. So back to the engine, what I believed, and I said before at a seminar I did last year, is I said, well, if the question was, I said, contact your manufacturer. Well, then the next question was, well, what if the manufacturer is no longer around? What do we do? Well, you either replace it, or if you want, with like aluminum, or monitor it, buy a bunch of gas filters. This is my thought then. Fly a little bit, cut the gas filter open, have a look at it, and see what's in the fuel filter. Because at the time, I thought, wrongly so, that when the resin started to degrade, it would put some gummy goo in the fuel filter, and then maybe later, you know, if you're starting to see the little fiberglass strands, the little fur in there, it's already too late anyway. It's already falling apart because the resin is gone and just the fibers are just floating away. What happened with this one is, nope, that didn't happen at all. It appears to me that the resin incorporated itself fully with the gasoline, went right through the fuel filter, went right through the carburetor, and burned in the combustion process. What did that do? Wow, what a bad result that was. The piston rings were absolutely stuck solid in the piston. So the combustion gas and the carbon like when you normally see carbon on top of the piston, which is from the combustion process, it went all the way down the sides of the pistons into the crankcase because there's no ring seal anymore. How it even ran, I really, it's amazing. So of course that engine had to come apart, and it was like it was, you know, the description was it's like it's full of epoxy, so it's just hardened resin. So what happened there? Well, it needs the engine repaired and a gas tank. So that's not the way that we would like to go. We need to learn from this stuff, and this is the same. This is why I'm doing this video today, because it just costs too much money. The thing could quit while you're flying. I mean, there's so many things that can happen on the bad side. We don't need it, right? We don't need that. When the engine stops, we're supposed to be competent enough pilots that we can just glide in and land somewhere. And if you've done that, that's awesome. That's what you're supposed to do. Just because the engine stops doesn't mean that, you know, it's not an airplane anymore. However, even with no damage, okay, what do you do now? You got to recover the airplane out of a field. You got to take the wings off it. You got to put it on a trailer. Like, let's try and avoid this stuff as much as possible. Now, what does it do in a four-stroke engine? So like in a 912, what it'll do is it will make the piston ring stick, so the oil consumption will go up. All of a sudden the engine will start to burn oil because the piston rings are sticking. And if you look in the cylinders with the camera or through the exhaust, you'll notice that the valves are all black and gooey. And this is all from the resin and the gasoline all combusting together. So in the 503, of course, it had gasoline, it had oil, which it was supposed to have, and it had resin. Not a good combo. So we need to be aware of this problem and make sure we take the appropriate steps to fix the problem so that it isn't a big disaster. Okay, there's an issue with the tank, let's deal with it before we have to repair the engine, get the airplane back out of a field somewhere. At best, it could be worse. So that's why I'm trying to get this information out. So if you know somebody, talk it up, talk about gas tanks with your flying buddies and find out. And you may seriously be able to help somebody out with that. Now, all around the rest of the world, I think in Spain, I might be speaking wrong, I'm thinking Spain. Anyway, there's places where they have 20-25% ethanol in it, and they deal with it. And I guarantee they're not using fiberglass style fuel tanks, because there's no way that it would work. It would dissolve the thing instantaneously, pretty much, in my opinion. So what's the solution? The solution for me was simple. I built an aluminum fuel tank for my airplane. And I'll show you that in 1 second. Now, the fuel tank that I prepared for my own aircraft, I wanted it to be exactly the same as this one, so that I don't have to change anything. The fuel filler cap, the hose, the gauge, the lines, the mounting, everything, I wanted it exactly the same. I want it to be able to strap in, so that all I have to do is take this part, throw this in the garbage, and install my aluminum fuel tank. So here's my replacement aluminum fuel tank for my pre-production #1 fuel tank, and the prototype is out flying around in another airplane right now. Now, just to confirm the time frame on this, I put the E10 in the aircraft because I checked it. I know it was E10, and in the fall, and I flew about 10 or 12 hours, really, consecutive, and then I just put the airplane away, stored it away for the winter time, and left the remaining fuel, which was maybe 10 liters maybe in the fuel tank, sit over the winter. So here we are 6 months later. So the condition of that fuel tank is over the 6 months over the winter when the airplane was sleeping over the winter time. Now I have a fuel sample before and after sample here and the fuel filter. So I'm going to come in closer so I can let you see that. So this degradation really took place over a, as far as I'm concerned, 6 month, 7 month time period. So fairly quickly. So this is the fuel sample of what was in the airplane when I flew that 10 or 12 hours before I put it away for the wintertime. And this is 87 octane. It's E10 and it's mixed with Castrol Super Snowmobile oil 50-1. This is the normal fuel and the way and normal appearance for this fuel. This is, whoops, where are we? This is what came out when I removed the fuel tank. So same fuel, same oil, but it looks like it has a pretty healthy dose of fiberglass resin from the fuel tank degradation in it. Now, would the engine start and run on this? Well, it probably, well, I would imagine it would, but that's going to start the whole process of sticking the piston rings and all the other bad things that happen when it combusts this mixture of gas, oil, and resin. So this is the fuel filter style that I use all the time. It's clear and I can see the filter media inside. And this is the way it was looking all the time when I flew that 10 hours or 12 hours, whatever it was, before I put the airplane away. So I went, okay, that's looking okay. This is the one that I took off the aircraft when I took the fuel tank out. So it's got that, I don't know, I just describe that as like a fiberglass color to it. I guess it's the resin in it, changed the color. So I'm going to cut this open now and see if there's anything actually on the screen because I'm curious and I have to know. Now I just did the old-fashioned let's blow through it test, and it's far easier to blow through this filter, the new one, than it is this one. So I suspect that there's going to be some gunk on the screen. So I had a bit of a hard time getting it apart because it's actually all kind of soft and squishy. I hadn't noticed that before. So it sort of went the same way the fuel tank did. Here's the filter media, as you can see, and there's a bit of like a glaze on it, kind of. I'm not going to do the blow-through test on this part but it has a really unusual aroma. It doesn't even smell like gas. So it smells like some chemical or something. Anyway, it definitely was more difficult to blow through this one that had the resin in it than the brand new one. And of course, this filter wasn't very old because I had just replaced it before when I was doing some maintenance before I did that last bunch of flying the 10 or 12 hours. So this wasn't meant to be an advertisement for my fuel tanks. What this is all about is I really want to get the word out that if you run your airplane on 100 low that all the time with a fiberglass tank, it shouldn't be an issue. It hasn't been so far. But if you're like everybody that I know, we're running our airplanes on car pump gas, mainly 91. Now, my 582 will run all day long, no problem, on regular, so 87 fuel. So for me, there's no advantage to buy 91 anymore because I didn't mind paying the extra money for more fuel than I needed because it was neat fuel with no ethanol. So now I just use 87 in my 582. It's it's fresh. It's probably the freshest you're going to get because I think that's what the majority of all the cars are buying is the cheapest gas that you can get. At any rate, so the takeaway on this is it's not just like in Canada here. So we got advanced ultralights, basic ultralights. It can also be home built, can be amateur built. So please talk this up with your your buddies, with your pilot friends around the airport and stuff, and go, hey, what do you got for a fuel tank? You just might save somebody a real heartache. It's bad enough that you go, well, yeah, okay. Like for me, yeah, I can't go flying because I have a gas tank now, but I didn't have a fuel tank that I considered safe at all to use. That's fine. I can deal with that. Yeah, I want to go flying. I need a gas tank. Okay, now I got a gas tank. I don't want to fool around trying to push it and end up in a field somewhere. That's not good for the sport, the whole thing in general, just the safety of everything. So there's enough things that can happen without knowingly having some type of an issue, but it's when you don't know about it. That's the worst part. So again, please spread the word on this. Around the rest of the world, it's probably no big deal because they probably don't have any fiberglass tanks anymore. But remember, I'm in Ontario, I'm in Canada. I think it's a big issue around where I am. So anyway, thanks so much for spending time with me today. Please talk it up, like, share, especially share, subscribe. Thanks so much. See you another day. Bye now.